I'm going to start off with, for any coaches that are feeling the pump out there or administrators that are feeling the pump, just win. Just
win.
go and win. And that's exactly what St Kilda and Essendon did on the weekend. Last 3 weeks, we were all over Brett Ratton and St Kilda coming up against the form team in Carlton, but they got the job done. And then Ratton and Essendon against Sydney. And you open the paper and Dave Noble and Ben Amafia apparently under heat because Jeff Walsh is there, and winning cures all ills.
Yes, it does, no question. But, both those coaches you spoke about in terms of Ratton and Ratton, that was no good when they played against each other. But I thought they actually coached more aggressively. Like, they made moves and did some things that were different. So all of a sudden, Max King, he's not left in that goal square to be the sole target. He was up on the wing in that last quarter, taking marks, being the connector. Membry pushes forward deeper. He kicks for. So all of a sudden, that's got a different look. Then I'm watching your game that you did, Essendon and Sydney, and I'm thinking, at various stages the Bombers are gone, but then Hobbs goes into the mix. So change the look up through the middle. Merritt, less possessions, more goals, different impact. And
Darcy Parish the same. I agree with all that, but I think we back announce a lot of that. There are things that coaches there are things that David Noble is doing now, changing, shifting, moving. None of them are coming to winning outcomes.
Yeah.
So we don't look back and go, oh, look, that's a good move. We're not seeing that. We're not able to commentate that because they're not winning.
Yeah, but we looked at Max King and we go, hey, you're going to Max King way, way too much. It's becoming predictable. You've got to get different options. The first 4 targets inside 50 in that game were Marshall, Ryder, Higgins and Membry.
But by half-time, he was the most targeted player inside forward 50.
Yeah, but Membry kicks 4 goals. He takes 3 marks on the wing in the last quarter.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but he was still the most targeted player inside forward 50.
Yeah, but they still shared the load more.
Which was great.
And they won.
They did because their ball movement was better, because their contest was better, and because their defence was better. And then all of a sudden their forwards can pop.
I think you coaches get bloody minded.
I'm part of the media, mate. I know what you're talking about. Number 2, and while we're still on it, the young spirit of Essendon was awesome. And Zach Merritt made some comments about their leadership afterwards, but I want to address their young players after this. When you win, then you get the platform to be able to say, hey, we could have been better here, there or there. But the other thing is that Essendon are feeling a little bit of momentum in the way that they're playing, not just in their win-loss, but we mentioned it, Durham, Jones and Hobbs went bang, bang, bang. That the caller was talking about the 5 minutes where they kicked 4 goals in the second quarter and his old man was happy. That was off the back of young enthusiasm, belief, really not knowing what it's like to do anything else than have a real crack at the contest, and that just bled through.
So the definition of stupidity, which is, this is just a saying, doing the same thing over and over and getting the same result. 3 weeks ago, we looked at it and said, why hasn't Ben Hobbs had 1 centre bounce? You don't give him 1 centre bounce when they're going through all this pain, the Essendon side.
Yeah, well, and you realise he was out of the he was out of the side. So Perkins was
this was a game when he was actually going to play.
Yeah, so Perkins was a laid out. Hobbs comes back in, and then he doesn't go into the midfield until the last quarter. Has 11 touches.
Bang.
Exactly, but there are circumstances, and yes, there's coaching moves, but the young boys were the ones, when I go back to the last one,
when they were going like bustards, he wasn't given a chance in the centre square.
Understand, and he was a 4 or 5, 6 game player. It might not have been time for him, but the other things that happened with Essendon was Parish, Merritt, Shield played slightly different roles, less touches, more impact, and that was excellent.
Let me just read this up. Good morning, Gary. I'm not exactly sure what Bucks has taken, but ever since he went into the jungle, he's come across as the most practical and likeable personality in the media.
Talk about a 360. It wouldn't be a 360, Gary. It'd be a 180, but let's move on.
Cop that after you're getting a nice compliment.
Well, it's a backhander. Daniel Rioli, breakout game. He's been in this role for a couple of months, and once again, shifts and little moves by Hardwick to rebuild and rewire Richmond. But Rioli's been brilliant. The connection between both Dimmer and Daniel Rioli's been strong, but Rioli's paying off this faith in spades, and he's been brilliant off the back. As has this guy, Nick Daicos. Has a young player ever come in, and he's actually travelled under the radar for the most of this year, and his last 3 or 4 games have just popped him up. But Craig McRae's been pretty happy with him.
We've talked a lot about the Rising Star group, and they're exquisite. But gee whiz, what an influence he's had.
Well, I would suggest that he is in the top 5 cleanest players at ground level in the competition. And that is no mean feat, just coming into the comp in your first year. He's played off halfback for the most of the time. We heard Hardwick just talk about Daniel Rioli improving his defensive capacity. Now, Nick will need to develop that. But right now, even playing as a halfback in amongst and around Howe, Moore, Maynard, Quainer, Noble, Murphy, these guys, and obviously the structure in front of him, the defensive aspects of Collingwood in their team defence and their pressure on ball allows him and his ball winning and use and capacity to impact the game in other areas other than just the one-on-one. And he wins one-on-ones, but right now he doesn't have to defend as much, and we're seeing his boys come to the fore. 37 touches, that clean take from clearance that went 50 metres laterally across the ground to his brother without breaking stride to kick a goal to put them in striking distance.
I've got your first year in front of me. A different game back then. You probably had to win your ball more rather than have it given to you. But your best was 34. Pretty good for first year, huh? 34 possessions. That was a nice game. You averaged just over 20. You had a lot of 30s. You had a very good first year as well.
I think it's not all about us, Gaz. Number 5, I did not. No, number 5, and the last one. We're getting to the pointy end of the year. The capacity of clubs to manage their players and to time their run, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, is going to be a challenge. But one interesting highlight that I wanted to look at was the way Geelong have managed Patrick Dangerfield. Managing your best players is crucial for all of the sides that are coming into finals, and we know that Geelong are one that are looking for different aspects to be able to push through. They get to the pointy end real often, but I think pump the brakes a little. Nat Fyfe, there was a lot of speculation about him. It's taken him a while to get up, so I don't think we're expecting Paddy Dangerfield to be his 28-year-old self, but having those sort of match-winning players in the right shape at the right time is something that every club will be challenged with.
Yeah, I get the feeling that this Thursday night is what Chris Scott has had his eye on for much of this season, given where the Cats are and the preliminary final result last year and where they want to be. Hey, Banco, I'm going to challenge. Of course I'm going to challenge Bucks. It's not about being the top dog. This is what we do here. Banco thinks that I don't have to hammer everything you say. That's part of what we do, Banco. Don't take it personally. Bucks knows what's going on.
Banco.
Hey, the buck stops here. Just win. The Spirit of Essendon, the Daniel Rioli breakout, Nick Daicos and Dangerfield and the Cats. Don't forget to have the conversation with your mates, the Mosh Men's online health open line. I want to add one here at the back of this, and this is hope for North Melbourne supporters who have got none at the moment.
Yep.
Right? It's a desperate situation. I've barracked for team, been there, seen it. Fremantle yesterday, we did this very early in the year, and then again, I want to revisit it. The team that beat Port Adelaide and now has them sitting second in the ladder, right? This is the way this team was put together. Andrew Brayshaw, pick 2. Mm-hmm. James Ace traded for pick 68 and a future third. Sean Darcy, 36.
Who would make that trade? Yeah.
Will Brodie traded got for nothing, basically. Rory Lobb, they gave up pick 11 to the Giants and for Lobb and picks 14, 43, 47. Sarong, pick 8. So what you're seeing here is some high draft picks, which we know the Kangaroos are going to get. Then some trading and some drafting. Luke Ryan, pick 66. Ethan Hughes, a rookie pick. Lockie Schultz, 57. Frederick, 61. Mm-hmm. Brendan Cox, 41.
On Frederick, he could be anything.
Wow, what an upside. Alex Pearce was 37. He's holding down defence. Travis Collier for a future 4th rounder. Michael Walters, 53. Matthew Taberner was a rookie pick. Bailey Banfield was a rookie pick. And then you got the Logues and the Fyfe and Mundy who were all first round. So
Switkowski who didn't play on the weekend, 73.
That's right. Then you trade, you go to the trade. Aish, Clark, Lobb, Brodie, Akers, Collier.
Mm.
Most clubs could have had a crack at them. Maybe not Jordan Clark, who wanted to come home.
Mm.
But it's the way you structure up this side. You don't need to have it's not all about high draft picks.
No,
it's
it's
about
not.
what you do after that.
So should North Melbourne get a priority pick?
Well, I think they should. I think they should put their hand up for it. And then, I know there's a lot of people out there that say no, priority pick should go. They should put their hand up and then let others decide whether they should. They've been pretty poor for a long period of time.
It
won't be the panacea, though.
It's not.
This is what I'm saying.
But a priority pick isn't just access to a top 5 talent. It means that you have an extra pick in the first 30.
Yeah, in the first round, maybe.
Yeah, but it actually means, but even if it's there, it's just another go that you get to have a crack before other clubs do, and that it just adds to the mix.
It does, but my point being on this Bucks, without wanting to upset Banco, it's not about first round or priority picks. It's about what else you are able to do in the short term, and that is pick the eyes out of the draft and trade.
I've been a convert on this for a long time, and it's not necessarily about high-end talent. It's about how you bring the attributes of each of your players together. Now, if you can find, Aishi's playing career best footy.
Unbelievable yesterday.
And plays mature at different rates. But when you find a plan that is put together and you feel like you are a part and contributing an important aspect of that team plan to, for yourself and for the rest of your teammates, you grow and you develop and you pop. It doesn't really matter how you've come through the door, whether you're a first-round draft pick, whether you're traded or whether you're a rookie. If you feel important and you feel valued in an environment, you will find your best.
Yeah, and the unspoken part of this is that Fremantle have got their football club in great order right now. So they appear to be a really, really good footy club. They've got a really good coach. They've got really good people behind the scenes. They've got good recruiters. And we know North Melbourne's recruiters have walked out. And so all of those issues are taken into consideration. They've got to build a good footy club so that they can have an environment where these players can come in and thrive.
That was a cracking game of footy too.
Raf's joined us from Meadow Heights. G'day, Raf.
Good morning, Gary. Good morning, Nathan. How are you?
Thank you.
Good, mate.
I'm a little confused about crowd capacity. So a month ago, I wanted to get tickets to Carlton Collingwood, and game was sold out. 80,000 people rocked up only. 20,000 extra seats. I don't know where they went. And then Friday night, Carlton to Kilda. People got knocked back. I was watching. People got knocked back. No tickets. Game sold out. 43,000 people at the game. Now, there's 10 more thousand seats there. What is going on? I don't understand it. Is it COVID? Is it the AFL don't want to play out? Can someone explain, please?
It would be, Raf, memberships like AFL members or MCC members who have got a right to turn up or not. So if you're at the MCG and it's a sellout, that would be a sellout unless it's grand final day when everything's sold. But so what you're talking about at Marvel Stadium, that'd be sort of Medallion Club members or AFL members who can either choose to turn up or not turn up. So that would have been the issue there, Raf. And it's been a frustration for a long period of time. Is there a system in place that says, look, if you got to nominate that you're going to go if you're an AFL member or a Medallion Club member, and by Thursday night, if you haven't nominated, then those tickets go on sale. I don't know whether that works. This is an area that I'm not au fait with.
It's interesting to see what they do in the States, because in the end, the stadiums and the competition are about maximising revenue as much as providing opportunity for people to come. So if they've had people that have paid for tickets and don't rock up, I don't know how you actually do any better than that to sell your tickets out.
Yeah. I don't either. No. I know it's frustrating, though, for people like Raf who might turn up to a ground and say, no, it's sold out, you can't get in, and then they go home and watch it and there's vacant seats. So I could understand that frustration.
Normally frustrating.
John's in Taylor's Lake. G'day, John.
Good morning, Gary. Good morning, Nate. How you going, boys?
Good morning, John.
Good, thank you.
If you two guys were selectors in the All-Australian side, I just want to know what your opinion would be. Would you pick anyone ahead of Daniel Rioli on the half-back line in the All-Australian side to this point of the season?
Well, John, I am a selector in the this year for the All-Australian, so I'll hand this over to Gaz.
That's a great question, Johnny, because I just wrote it down myself. So these are the candidates right now. Your man, Daniel Rioli. Angus Brayshaw would nearly be a lock on one, and people go, oh, you're good on you. But he's just had an extraordinary season as a halfback flanker. Nick Daicos would be in contention. Sam Doherty, Sinclair on the weekend was unbelievable for St Kilda. Maynard's been great all year, so I don't envy them. You've got Tom Stewart, although he's out now for 4 weeks, and you've got Nick Vlosten as well that's sort of sitting into that group, but probably not halfback flankers,
deeper,
but
yeah.
more interceptors. So she's a pretty good lineup, Johnny. So that's a hard one for sure. Great call. You're in the running for the 2-hour Hilux Rogue. Matthew's in Pakenham. Hi, Matthew.
Good morning, boys. How are we going?
We're going
Very
well,
well.
thanks.
That's good. I want to talk about 2 Collingwood players. Nathan, you'll probably know one more. Nathan Murphy, just an absolute clone of Darcy Moore, and obviously Nick Daicos. He's seeing things before everyone else on that field. It's unbelievable for a first-year player.
Yeah, we've just spoke about Dakes, and he's just got a capacity to make the right decision at the right time. And Craig McRae mentioned it in his presser and in his comments just before as well. And he sees things that not many do. Nathan Murphy's, it's just great to see him get a really solid run at it. He's been injury prone. He's crazy courageous and does some things that have injured himself over the period of time, and he's just continued to develop. So for him to get, he's now got half a dozen games under his belt in a row, and you're right, he looks a spitting image of Darcy in general running and in general play, which shows how athletic and what sort of size that he has about him as well, and he's been a real find and addition to Collingwood's back 6 and 7.
Yep, good on you, Matthew. Nathan alerted us to him as a real player of great potential. Gaz, I don't think that's right. I think it was the other side of the Medallion Club that had the empty seats. That could be right too. I defer to anyone about membership and seats and how that works. Would that mean if you bought a seat on the other side of the ground and you didn't turn up, would that also count? I don't know. It's an area I don't know. Allow reserve seat members to sell back their seat allocation if they're not attending.
I think they do that a little bit in the States.
No, 100% they do.
Yeah.
You can go online for a basketball game at Madison Square Garden, and if you own the seat right there, you can put it up at $500.
And that works. That works in markets that the demand exceeds the supply. So you own a membership or you own that seat, and if you're not going to go to every game, so a lot of people will therefore buy those memberships as an investment, and then they make more money selling the seats.
That's right.
Than they do actually purchasing them at the beginning of the year.
Cool. Bucks, I don't envy you this halfback business. Jordan Dawson, James Sicily, Adam Sard.
Adam Sard was one that
Alex
wasn't
Pearce,
mentioned,
Bailey Dale, Dan Houston.
Dan Houston's been playing in the midfield, and Sicily probably plays deeper. All of these are great. I mean, James Sicily, just for instance, he's a key back. He doesn't play as a halfback flanker, even though he's halfback flank size. He plays as a key back. So, Callum Wilkie, and we're talking about, Sam Collins type players. They're the Dylan Grimes. That's what a key back looks like now.
Good luck.
Correct.
Sorting all that out, Bucks. That's what you're on the.
You want it to be difficult.
That's why you're on the big Bucks. I want to ask you about Clayton Oliver, and people go, "Has there been a player that plays at an elite level, more consistently than him?" Now, I was thinking about this. I don't reckon since Dustin Martin was churning it out regularly, like dominating 25 and 3 goal sort of games, whether it be grand finals or home and away. His gap between his best and worst is the narrowest in the competition.
I'm a bit biased, but I think Pendles has been a player that does that.
Probably in his prime.
He's only just coming out of it. Really, I mean, he's had 10 years of it.
No, that's true. No, but not in the last 4 years. He wouldn't hold a candle to Oliver.
No, they're at different stages of their careers. But I would suggest that that you are on the money. And when you look at, so the question is about a 7-year deal for him in the last week. You go, well,
not long enough.
He is as bankable as any player in the competition. We've just had a message come in here about how a shout out to Clayton Oliver. How's his face when he gets the ball? It's awesome seeing him smile. Like that. Like you can sell players when they actually enjoy their work. Steel Sidebottom's the other one for me. He used to run around with a smile on his face, like a dog hanging its head out the window. You love seeing people enjoy their work. But Clayton Oliver is as robust, as consistent, as bankable as any player in the competition. And if that's if that's an indication of the confidence that your club has in you and the capacity to reach this elite level week after week after week, year after year after year, I agree with your comments.
So when I talk about the gap between best and worst, that's what I reckon defines a player. So then you'll have a bloke who's 7.5 might drop to 6.5.
Yeah.
Or you might have a 6 who drops to 5, who's still really important to your team because you know what you're going to get. He's a 9.5 that drops to 9. That's where I sit.
It's pretty amazing.
It is incredible.
It's going about it the other way. But if you actually had to look at the game, like have a look at a game where he hasn't performed or where he hasn't done well, he's probably still getting 20, 22, setting up his teammates, and you need to tag him to get to that point because he's clocking the game at the moment.
Yeah.
You're having to increase the resistance somehow, and tagging's the only way that you can do that.
Good luck. Daniel Rich, Hayden Young, Mason Redmond, they're coming for you, Bucks. I love my Mondays with Nathan. It's different to what we do with Tim because we will sometimes disagree and we continued our conversation through the 8 o'clock news. So the bit of audio we played then was the Chris Fagan in response to a question about when they last played against the Western Bulldogs and also Ben Rutten referring to the last time they played against Sydney.
Yep.
Both coaches, well, certainly Chris Fagan answered the question in the affirmative. Oh, yes, a little bit of motivation. But you're saying it's self-perpetuating. How can that be?
I think it is. I think there's
if the coach answers it.
I know it is. I know that there is a difference between the way clubs and coaching panels perceive their past and some of the issues that are brought up. I mean, I don't know how many, it was Luke Parker's 250th, which was to be celebrated. But it just so happened to be Essendon and the Luke Parker Dylan Shield one. The amount of airtime that gets, like for broadcast to drum up the emotive elements.
That's the industry we're in.
It is, absolutely it is. That is over the top compared to, if at all, that sort of Rutten, Essendon, Dylan Shield actually dealt with that in the lead up to this game. But
they're two different things, though.
Yes.
Right? So I agree with you.
Yep.
Because as I said to you in the ad break, it's a really good example. During the finals of last year over in Perth, so I'm there for a month. I'm away from all anyone wanted to tell me about was that Melbourne they played one game in 4 weeks because they played in the bye and they won. Then there was a bye and all that.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going, I wonder if that's a problem. And I'm there, so I'm close enough to talk to the people about it. They didn't even know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an issue, but that doesn't mean it's not an issue to be debated.
No, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that's what happens at press conferences because most coaches are quite open and expansive. They're not of the mind to shut people down. So if a direct question is asked about last time you played that opponent, of course, if you're a coach, you've looked at the last time you've played that opponent. You're actually trying to unpack the things that you did well against them and reinforce that, and the things that they did well against you, and then stop that from happening. So you're not going to say, no, we didn't look at that. But if it's seen as the motivation of, say, losing a final, or the motivation of 6 for Fagan and Brisbane, and 6 weeks ago when you played Sydney in Sydney and you performed so poorly. Yes, there's going to be elements of it, but where we build it to, and this is, I'm not being critical of it, but the difference between what happens in the internal environment of a football organisation and preparing for a game versus what we think the emotional hooks and triggers are that we pull the supporters, we pull each other into. They're actually very different.
Yes, so you're aware of it.
Yeah,
I become even more aware of it. But for the average punter out there, they want to know that. They coming into Essendon versus Sydney, the average punter who's not exposed to the footy like we are, they sit there going, I wonder whether Essendon will use this, the whole Luke Parker. Yep. So, of course, that's a legitimate question to ask.
And I think, I'm not saying it's not a legitimate question to ask, but I think it becomes self-fulfilling. We end up getting hooked on one particular aspect or another, where I think there's what we're seeing more come through. And I mean, I'd like to think that that we provide this enough, and that is, okay, let's get underneath the surface level and actually talk about what's actually going on in this game of footy. And there's some deeper, more meaningful themes that are taking place, and we want to share that with the viewers and the listeners.
That's true, but there are different levels of interest out there for the general supporter.
Yeah.
Some want to strip everything, and some will love the analysis, statistical analysis, and they want to go deep. And
so provide for
them.
Yeah.
Others will go, I just want to know who's going to kick that. And others will go, you both got the brace and bits with what Shield did, or what Parker did to Shield.
Yeah.
So there's all these different layers of interest which need to be serviced. So that is, I guess, the role of the media. And sometimes we go too far in focusing on one thing at 100%.
And where those seeds are planted are within the first 2 or 3 minutes of commentary, of review in the moment, because that locks away. And even like, so I'm doing the Couch with you tonight. So I think that's an influential program in taking the attention of the viewer, of the football lover, towards these issues.
Yeah.
So getting that right is actually a really important part in terms of educating the football viewer. So, and if you're a Carlton fan, okay, I want to know what Garry Lyon, Nick Rioli and Jonathan Brown think about how my club are going and what they're doing. And to get that right is important, because it really does set the agenda, and you end up, it becomes confirmation bias. You keep looking for those things.
But when you say to get it right, it's important. Ultimately, it's an opinion.
Correct.
Where there's I'll come on tonight and whatever and say it might not be what your opinion is.
Yeah.
But it's not. There's no right or wrong. The only right or wrong is on September 30.
Yeah.
That's where the right or wrong comes into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the end, the clubs and what's happening in clubland is what gets that done.
Oh, that's good. It's a good discussion. I like it. Hey, I've got a lot of other stuff I haven't even got to. So let me run through a few of the ones I've got.
Yes.
Now, watch that game, Port Adelaide and Fremantle. The Nathan Fyfe influence is just emerging more and more. And there's more influential players than him at the moment. I just wonder by season's end whether he will still be one of the most influential. His half-forward role that he played almost, I think, exclusively on the weekend, he's got game time under his belt. They're going to be very dangerous in this back half.
Well, absolutely, and you know how much impact the guy can have. I mean, he became like he had 21 touches, only 5 kicks, mind you. So he's getting a lot of ball there where. Yeah, you're a little bit outnumbered. You're in a contest, and then he's feeding guys in time and space. So, But his aerial capacity, we haven't really seen it come to the fore this year yet.
Yep.
And he's obviously coming off shoulders. So, ultimately, his capacity is going to be the cream on the cake for Freo, because they're pretty solid.
This is questions without notice. So I should frame these in questions, and you can as well. Chad Warner, has Chad Warner gone ahead of all the other talented group of young Sydney Swans players?
He's like, that game he played on the weekend was
crazy,
next level. Like, he's had 13 inside 50s.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't going inside 50, he was winning clearances. So you think, okay, what are the two most important kicks in footy are the inside 50 kick, how well you do that, and it's actually, I reckon, it's the kick out of defensive 50, because if you can find someone there in your defensive mid, then you can set the game up. So, and then obviously a clearance possession is worth its weight in gold as well. So this kid is winning ball from the inside, getting outside. He's breaking lines, and he's damaging going inside 50, kicking, and he kicked 3 goals himself. So that's an awesome performance. Really good.
Gone ahead of Golden, Campbell, McDonald, Stevens.
At this, his performance and his form right now is at that level. Lot of talk about Dan McStay, and he hasn't been performing as well. It's widely assumed that he's been offered 5 years at $600K from Collingwood. What's your read on that?
Oh, I don't. I'm not deferring. I don't play in the space. I don't chase the story. I wouldn't have a clue what he's been offered. Would they have that much money in their salary cap, Collingwood?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Well, you don't. So they'd have to cut someone to fit him in.
Well, I would have thought that would have. It was only a couple of years ago we were having a shed, so I don't know whether that's been whether that's a possibility, but that, because he's that's the type, we just assume that's a fit, don't we? Or is there more underneath it is there more
for Collingwood and McStay?
Well, no, even for is there more guts to that story from information from managers, etc.?
No, again, I don't know. We'll have to get Sam Edmund in. I don't know. The fact that he hasn't signed, and Brisbane are a team that you would be very happy to stay at. I guess that adds some weight to it. But I don't know what he's a nice player, but gee, it's a lot of excitement over a player that, it just is a good sort of solid goer.
Where did you rank Georgiades' mark?
Yes, I'm well placed to talk about these, having been involved in many marks of the year.
Listen to that roar for Garry Lyon.
No.
Was Sean Smith on you?
Thank you, and Jeff Farmer many times, Russell Robinson occasionally.
So I know you went under Mitch Georgiades, but
It was a great mark.
and you didn't.
It was a great mark. Both he and Young's marks were sensational. It was a really enjoyable game. We had all the highlights, goals from the
Charlie
boundary.
Dixon's goal.
Yeah, Caleb
Sarong's goal.
It's a fantastic game of footy, so I loved it. Just on Geelong, the timing of, as you spoke about earlier, in having all of these players together at the right time of the year is starting to materialise, isn't it? It just looks like it's falling into place. Now, things can go wrong, I understand, from here. Selwood de Koning rested on the weekend. They'll come back. Menengola got games into him. Duncan's playing again. The two key forwards are up and about. It just looks like they're timed their run okay.
And this will only be judged in retrospect.
Yeah.
Because
that's right.
Geelong have put themselves into a position that they've put themselves into year in, year out.
That's true.
Chris Scott is a 70% plus win ratio.
Okay, so let me frame the question differently.
Do we think this
What
is
is
the
different about Geelong this year to previous?
Well, I don't think there is a lot different, to be honest. I don't think there's a lot different. I think that they've been able to maintain their momentum through the season. I think GMHBA helps when they go back home because that ground has what I believe is the biggest home ground advantage of any club. Even when you travel to Perth or you travel to Brisbane, like that's shaped, the ground is shaped differently, and I think that has the biggest impact on the type of football that's played. And I think that's a massive advantage to them. I think they're introducing younger players, and that is helping them. They're doing it without Stewart at the moment. I think Hawke has probably had a couple of quiet ones before he jumped up this week. I think they're just idling along beautifully, but it's still as a matter of putting it all together when it counts.
So I would say, if I was asked that, Sam de Koning is changed, given that he wasn't there last year. Tyson Stengel has changed, given that he wasn't there last year. So there's two pretty important pieces of a puzzle that's been pretty well, spot on, apart from the fact they haven't been able to get across the line. So it allows Blitzars then to do some different stuff.
But see, when 2 or 3 years ago, Graham Myers was doing pretty similar to what Stengel's probably doing it a little bit, hitting the scoreboard a little bit more. But then Dowhouse had come in and he had an impact straight away. So those players have dropped off a little bit, and you got some that have come up. So. And de Koning's, he is an exceptional talent, and you're going to be able to build around him. I don't know. I mean, in the end, the question is sometimes has a Carlton had its best mix together at any point? No. Probably not.
No.
Has Geelong had its best mix together at any
starting
point? No. Melbourne. Well, they started the season without a backline.
Oh, we haven't spoken about Melbourne.
You've got teams that, in the end, how you looked in round 5, or even in round 16, is largely irrelevant when you get to finals. And there's a lot of footy to be played between now and then. So which is the team that is going to be able to not just get their ducks in a row with their playing stocks, but to be in sync, on song, and efficiently playing together? That's the challenge.
Big question to be answered in time.